Oh, how about now? What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Thank you. Thank you for that interactive DNA. It's cool. Let me redo my intro. Well, let's see. Can you guys? Yes. Good now. Perfect. Awesome. Let me redo the intro. What's going on, everybody? My name's Ian, and I do sculpting stuff. I'm the training manager and lead ZBrush trainer here at Maxon, and I thought today we would be doing some fun sculpting, some sketching, some just getting some stuff nice and done. And I thought today let's do some carnage by sculpting some carnage. So that'll be fun. But of course, too, you guys can always ask any fun questions you might have. Going through real quick. And I have some of my, just pulling up some reference real fast. Carnage is always a fun little character. So I thought today we'd start with a bust and then we go from there. All right. So cool. So let's just get straight into it. Yeah, I've missed streaming the last few times because I've been at SIGGRAPH and prepping for some other events. If you guys are going to IBC, then, which is in Amsterdam. I'm going to be there. So if you're in the area, let me know. Stop by and say hi. That would be fun. Let's turn this floor off for a second. And today we're just going to do some sketching in ZBrush. Let's just do this. Let's get the trim dynamic brush. So B, T, and then D for the trim dynamic. And Carnage doesn't really have any ears, but what I want to do is actually utilize this placement and put some landmarks here. Hey, what's happening, guys? What version of ZBrush? So I am in 2023.2.1, which is the latest version of ZBrush. Hey, what's up, Rodolfo? What's going on? Hey, Amir, how you doing? Oh, I use OBS Stream and the output was set, but I had to reconnect a ton of my, I had to like reconnect a bunch of my stuff. I moved my office around, so things just got messed up. Also, I can't stand listening to myself. I've seen some people set up with like listening to themselves. I have a hard time with that. Not gonna lie. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna soften his nose up a little bit, but we're gonna extend this lower part out because I want to maintain the actual shapes of what's happening here on this bust. So, because Carnage doesn't really have a nose, but he has a nose. If that makes sense. So we're gonna make sure that we really identify that. Did I actually catch the start of your stream this time? You did. You actually caught the start of my stream this time, which is really, really cool, man. I'm happy you're here. Okay, so I'm just pulling up some reference on the side as well, just because I want to just, you know, we got to stay true enough to the character. But we're going to see how far we could push this. I thought this would be kind of a cool bust. So we're going to just go ahead and just start finding some of the placements of where the human skull would be, and then we're going to work around that. Now, of course, too, Carnage has something which is really nice, which is just the ability to, his eyes are like kind of out here like this. So we're just going to do like a loose sketch. There we go. Yeah. And I'm going to draw, let me do this real fast. I'm actually going to come through here, move this placement around. I'm going to block out this area. I think I want his mouth needs to be open. So we need to do something like this, right? And I'm just literally going to push this all the way in. So we're just going to scale this down, push this in, put this up like this, maybe stretch that. And then we're going to Dynamesh build that. Yeah. Now he's just a happy dude. I'm surprised at myself. Yeah, but with a headphone you place on the side of a mute. Oh, that makes sense. Dude, that's interactive DNA. That's actually a really great idea. I'm going to try that. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Carnage is so much cooler than Venom. You know, I attempted to sculpt a lady Carnage at one point, and I didn't fail at it. I just didn't like it. Does that make sense? So this would be my first official attempt at doing like a Carnage character. So we'll see what we could do today. What's cool about him, and I agree, I actually think his design is a little bit cooler. I think Venom is just kind of overplayed at this point, which is nothing really wrong with that. I just think I think everybody sculpts Venom. I sculpt Venom once a year, like, because he's actually my what do I call it? He's like my test for like improvements. That's something that I'll do where I will come through and I'll be like, okay, I need to kind of see where my skill sets are at and areas I need to improve. So I sculpt Venom every year to kind of just like how do I see myself approaching him, and then B, on top of it, like what are ways that I think I can improve on the process itself. So those are things that I end up doing, and so Venom is usually one. But yeah, I think he's a bit overplayed currently. I think most superhero characters are pretty overplayed, and that's just because we're in an era of superhero and villains, and all that good jazz. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's just my opinion. It's just I feel like everybody's doing it, and here I am doing it too. So here we are. Question: Will Maxon move ZBrush to Cinema 4D? Make one software, because right now Cinema 4D for quick project and not for ZBrush. Would be amazing if one was inside of Maxon. So no, the plan is not actually to move one, to cannibalize one program for another. The plan is the Maxon 1, and what that is it is a group. Think of it like it's very similar. It's a very similar ideal to like what kind of Adobe Suite does, right? There's a lot of products and they all serve a great purpose for that product, but they're all in one spot. The Maxon 1 is no different. Maxon 1 is all about taking the programs and putting them through a process where you can basically one-stop shop, get all the 3D tools that you need under one roof. That's the idea. And even still, we've partnered with a lot of companies. We've partnered with Adobe. We've had partnerships with After Effects and some other, that's still Adobe. But we've had partnerships with other programs too, and there's more partnerships in the way. So the idea is that not only do our tools are accessible under one roof, but our tools also play nicely with others. So at the end of the day, no, we're not gonna take ZBrush and dump it into Cinema 4D. However, that being said, in the new versions of Cinema 4D, there are tools that we've been sharing. So for example, ZRemesher, Cinema 4D has the best adoption of ZRemesher built inside of it, and it has such a procedural method that it makes ZRemesher or remeshing your mesh really quick and effective with, I believe, a tag. I'm not a Cinema 4D expert. I've started learning it myself because I've been doing pipelines with ZBrush into Cinema 4D. And with Cineware, which is a connecting tool to allow you to, bridge out from Cinema 4D to, let's say, Unreal Engine, those aspects, it's all about tool connectivity and the ability to strengthen pipelines. So there's not going to be like ZBrush is not going away. ZBrush is ZBrush, but the adoption of some of the tools and aspects, that's super important, and that's something that we want to continue doing well. So hopefully that answers your question. But that's the general plan that I can speak of. Okay, we're going to do some eye blockouts right now. This is a little early stage, I would say, but the reason why I want to do the eyes is because I want to see the character. So I want to place for them. Now, one of the new features here, so notice I just kind of blocked this area out. One of the new features is actually masking, mask region, and auto region, and that usually fills in one side. Why didn't it fill in this side, though? That's a bit weird. Oh, you know what? My mesh actually may not be truly... I might have sculpted on one side over the other. Let me do a mirror and weld real quick. Yeah, there were some points that were not truly symmetrical, so that's on me. Let's go back to masking. So let's do the same thing. So I'm gonna just mask this area out. Give me a eye placement. And what's cool about doing these types of, let me just sharpen that real fast. Mask auto region, that was still faster than painting that. So what's really neat about this is just the ability to come through here and kind of see where this character lives. So I'm going to pull this in just a little bit. What I could actually do here real fast is let's do Control W, which will give me a new selection. And then what I'm going to do is with the selection, I'm actually going to duplicate this. So just Control-Shift-D for duplicating. And then I'm going to come down here to deformation, and I'm going to do a polish by groups. Let's do solo real quick. So polish by groups will smooth this area out. I'll isolate this section alone. And then I'm going to go to geometry, modify topology, and delete hidden. And then let's do a ZRemesher on that. So we'll keep it, it's not even 5,000 active points. Let's scale that down. Adaptive size down to 0, smooth groups, and let's do a ZRemesh, and then let's just half that a couple times. Give me something a little bit cleaner. That's too low. That's fine. That should be good, and then this will be my eyes. And then I'm going to duplicate this and then hide this because the first subtool always gets named if you save out as a ZTL. So let me hit save real fast. And then come up here to desktop, and let's just call this Carnage. Let me just see here. Carnage. Carnage. Jeez. Okay, cool. Don't... Carnage Blockout. _001. Okay, great. Yeah, it's always going to look like it. Carnage and Venom are essentially the same thing. The difference is that Carnage is more gaunt, and he's a little bit more aggressive than Venom. Venom's a little bit more like he's more reserved, but still animalistic. Yeah, Rodolfo, watch me spell, buddy. Watch me spell. That's always a fun little thing, right? Okay, so again, I'm going to scale this inward just a little bit. And this is where you could turn on local symmetry, but not with dynamic, and center this, and then you can scale that in, and then you can get something that looks a little bit more inwards like this. Say something like that. And then you can rebuild this surface. And then let's just go ahead and let's turn on Dynamesh. And this is built at 128. We're just doing a block out, so this will be fine. We don't need super high resolution. Just want it close enough. All right, let's see if I do. We actually have a free version of ZBrush currently, ZBrush Core Mini, which is a great way to start. It's a great way to start, and student licensing is ridiculously cheap. So, like, if you were to go to Maxon, like, I can say for the US, for 6 months, it's like, it's less than a trip to McDonald's. It's really, really cheap. So if you wanted to, if you were in school, or you're a teacher, or you're a student licensing is crazy affordable. Like, so affordable, it's not even funny. This is the most affordable price I've seen for most software companies, not even being biased. I've looked at a lot of other companies myself. I have other software too. Like, I do use, you know, Substance. I do use Marvelous Designer, or I started using Marvelous Designer. I use these other tools, and that's probably the most affordable. So it's definitely free. But if you wanted to get into ZBrush, if you wanted to start learning ZBrush today, ZBrush Core Mini is a great choice. It's fully free, and you can get that from Maxon as well. And the reason why I'm preaching it is because it's a great way to start learning ZBrush without worrying about the UI or the you know, the constructs of what the UI is. I know the UI, I hear it all the time. I know the UI is a little bit not super intuitive, and that's okay. That's actually what my job is, to help make it seem super intuitive. But we also have a great Getting Started series, but Mini is super intuitive. So that's a really great way to start as well. Yeah, I love no, I love the UI. Are you kidding? The UI is controlled chaos in an amazing way. As somebody who teaches it, I mean, I tell you, like, it's the first thing people say. It's the first thing that seems like a deterrent, but trust me, it's controlled chaos, as I call it, in the best way possible. And believe you me, once you see it, it's really like, it's not even super great. Like, for example, here, let me save this real fast, and I'll show everybody what I was talking about. I do this all the time, where I tell people, like, this is how I'm going to get you started in ZBrush with less than 5 minutes. And if you can do everything I'm telling you to do, like right now, like here, like this is one of my examples. I actually did this when I was at SIGGRAPH. Somebody did not know that how to get started in ZBrush, so this is what I did. So I was like, look, okay, all right, so pretend this is a getting started moment, and you're learning for the first time. So if you are learning for the first time, this will be really good for you. But this is how ZBrush starts, right? So it's like ZBrush starts with something like this. You have a clean canvas, and you get this pop-up menu, and this pop-up menu is just like telling you all the latest information. You can actually just, you know, have this show up whenever you want, but just ignore that for now. Go here. And then it's recommended you have a pen, but if you have a mouse like this guy, you're fine. Mice are good. It's a great way to get started. The best thing to realize is right up here at the top. This is like the best way to get started in ZBrush. This is every project or asset you could ever want in ZBrush, but if you don't know like what to get started in, don't worry about it. All you need to know is open up one of these default projects, say something like this demo head, say, yeah, I don't want to save that, that's fine because we didn't do anything. So here we go, we got a demo head, right? The thing to remember is that if you can, like navigation, if you're using a mouse, all you need to do is just left click. So not right click, left click anywhere, and just you're rotating and you're good to go. If you take one finger, press and hold Alt, and then left click, again, not right clicking, but you're pressing the left mouse button, and you're now panning. And then if I just let go of Alt, but I'm still left clicking, I zoom in and out. Really, really simple. You can do right click, Control, and that does panning as well. So you can do that as well if you would like. But if you only wanted to use the Alt, which is my biggest button that I use for everything, the Alt button literally is like wearing out. That's how often I use it. Then that's it. Then that's your panning, okay? And then all you need to do, forget all the other stuff here. Don't even worry about these menus up here. Don't worry about these sliders. Don't even worry about this section over here, okay? The only thing you need to worry about is the B button for brush. And the way I want you to look at it too is like on the left-hand side, this is like if you were a sculptor, if you're a traditional sculptor, and I'm actually learning traditional sculpting, so this is cool. If you're a traditional sculptor and you have your sculpture in the middle, which is this guy right here, this is your sculpture, it's in the middle, then all of your tools, all your sculpting tools or brushes, you set that down on the left side. And all the clay that you have, that's gonna be your subtools, that's on the right-hand side. So you have your sculpting tools on the left-hand side, you got a bunch of clay on the right-hand side. Just think of it like that, and then you just hit B for brush to pick out brushes, and just pick any brush and just see what it does. Don't worry about anything else. Just be like, hey, you know what? I want to give this guy a second pair of ears. Boom, second pair of ears. I want to give this guy a pig nose. Boom. Okay, not super clean, but that's okay. There you go. Or X turns off symmetry, X turns on symmetry. So here we go, got a pig nose, and let's just give him some more eyes. Boom, done. If you can do that, you're already sculpting in ZBrush. Everything else comes with time. And then just save it, just Control S. Just Control S, and then that will save it. It'll pop up an area, and then you just desktop and be like, and then literally type this, I am awesome. All right, you did it. You're learning ZBrush. Boom, done, done, done. That's really it. Like, that's all you really need to know. Everything else just comes with time, and then you can take the Getting Started series. You can do that, you can ZBrush. And most people can do that. I'm really confident in that. So that's the way I teach how to get started in ZBrush really, really quickly. So Dr. Sassy, who does all the chaptering, he's gonna chapter that for future content. Well, you know what? We might even just make that a snippet at the same exact time. So if you guys, so that's the thing, yeah. It's really, really fun. So I do stuff like that. Hey, what's up, Ace of Gamer? This is gonna be Carnage. Yeah, we're doing Carnage today. Hey, I watched this. Congrats on that. Loved every second. Oh, sweet, dude. Thanks, man. Yeah, like the stream, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'm here most Wednesdays. The only time I cancel my streams is if I am busy with other projects, i.e. like in a couple weeks, I'm going to be at IBC in Amsterdam doing more presentations. So more than likely, you're not going to see me on here because I'll be in another country. Okay, cool. So now we have this base of ugliness of Venom currently, and that's okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a tongue in there. I like to put all the things I need to. I always say this when it comes to sculpture work. It doesn't really matter who you are. Get all of the tools out there that you absolutely 1000% would need. Don't try to just like detail one thing. Like that's never going to work 100%. Or it'll just take longer, in my opinion. So it's like once you get all the pieces of the sculpture out, it just makes life a lot easier. So that's what I'm end up doing here. So just took a sphere, use an extender deformer, and now I'm just gonna go ahead and we're gonna do a little bit of bendy. This is my favorite way to bend. I take the transpose line, press and hold Alt over this middle section, and then I just come through and bend this. Now, this is actually bending weird because I have zero geometry in the middle. So let's fix that. Let's do a low res Dynamesh. That's not good enough, so let's do 32, Dynamesh that, and then we'll come through and start bending this. You can also, too, if you wanted to do it another way, which is with more defenders, go to bend curve, like this, and then you can come through. This is probably like what I classify the cleanest way to do it. Take these little orange cones, and you come through, and you just start like moving the shape around, and you give it something that looks kind of cool. I always like to add, like Venom tongues or Carnage tongues, I always like to give them just a little bit of weirdness. So, say something like that. Let's accept it, and then let's just squeeze that in. And then 32 is still a little too low, so let's go 64, and let's rebuild that. Great. And then let's focus on the tongue section for just a minute. Let's come through here, and let's do this. Hey, what's up, Anthony? Doing well, man. Doing well. Thank you. Thank you. Right-click army over here. Yeah. Dude, I use right-click all the time, especially on my pen. Whoop, whoop. It's so awesome. You said you're learning traditional sculpting. I assume you're learning how to make human faces. I'm struggling myself with making human head and facial landmarks. Dude, so I'm actually taking a Gnomon class, because I'm so close to it, and I was like, I have to. So I'm taking a Gnomon class with John Brown, and I've been digital sculpting for 9, eventually going on 10 years in a few months, actually, which is just wild to think about. I've never once really, like, I've touched real clay. But I've never sculpted like purposely with real clay. I never had the opportunity to really do that. You know what I mean? So like, and do it like by learning it. Like YouTube was like, oh, this is really cool. Like picked up some Sculpty and then did like a thing and then nothing came of it. It was just like that, right? So I was like, I wanted to like learn from somebody who knows it well and do it seriously. So I'm taking a course with John Brown, and I'm actually learning faces right now. And here's the crazy part. So the correlation between ZBrush and traditional sculpting is ridiculously transferable. Like to be able to take the skill sets that I'm currently doing with how I approach sculpture, but then also the way you approach sculpture and traditional sculpting is so vastly different. So what's fascinating about that is that there are things that already in traditional sculpting that I started learning that I'm like, oh, this actually is why this part of my model sucks in ZBrush. So I'm learning a lot of really cool stuff, and I highly recommend it, especially for faces, because that's what I'm currently working on. And actually, I have some future project plans for anybody who's interested, where I'm going to come on and showcase, like, how I am taking different approaches after learning traditional sculpting in ZBrush, and showcasing, some tips and tricks that I think work really, really well. And this won't be my only traditional sculpture, because I'm actually very excited to finish this sculpture in due time. Like, I'm not rushing it, but I'm excited to continue the process of sculpting traditionally. So there's a lot of stuff I already want to share with what I've learned. I'm super excited about it. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know. Like blocking out the human body. Oh, I do that really differently now. Okay, just kind of want to take a look at these forms real quick. So I don't want to really mess up his neck placement. Neck placement's super important, but I want to basically put in the right part. So I want to hit his collarbone, his clavicle up here. Kind of looking at it upside down, so I at least see what that's supposed to look like. And again, he's pretty gaunt. He's not necessarily like, he's not as big. He's not like, Venom's kind of like bodybuilder big. I would say Carnage is a little bit more like athletic. if anything else. So that's kind of the approach I want to take. Work up some of these forms here just to get a little bit of that. Just kind of get those traps being built on there. On the side profile, I actually want to make sure there's a trap muscle right back here. So traps kind of lay on top of things. So I want to make sure that I hit this and get this kind of little bump thing going on here. Okay, there we go. That's starting to read a little bit better. Let's go ahead and just come on up, and I'm just going to hit save. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Hey Ian, can I watch all of your live streams video in one place? Says Harsh. Actually, most of my live streams, so I don't know if we've categorized them in folders, but that's actually a really good idea. Let me see if we've categorized them in folders. Everything I've done is on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and just type in Ian Robinson ZBrush, you're going to get, you probably find some of my very first ZBrush lives like a few years ago. But that would be the easiest way to see them. However, I don't know if we've foldered them. So I could take a look at that and see if that's something we can do. A lot of my live streams used to be more project-based. I never really, because I take so many questions too, because that's what I love to do is take your questions. That's kind of my thing. A lot of my stuff, sometimes I feel like my projects don't get done as fast as I would want them to be. But at the same time too, like, we tend to answer a ton of questions. There's a lot of really solid information in there is my point. So that would be the fastest way to see it. Okay. So here's a big tip, especially when you're working in ZBrush. If you start noticing that you're fighting the geometry, i.e. you're trying to do a thing and then it's not helping you, that's an indication that you're too low in the resolution, and then you'll want to try to step up. But with stepping up resolution, I think it's good to start as low as possible. So that's why my Dynamesh is started at like 32, then 64, then 128. You just start at a spot that feels more comfortable. And then the other thing I'm going to do is really always just check your silhouette. Now, right now, we don't have a whole lot of information going on still. It's still very kind of loosey-goosey at this moment, but like his mouth here is pretty closed. So let's open it up a little bit further, but I was working on getting some landmarks in order to get that a little bit closer. So let's soften this up. Now with jaws, they just don't open up this way, right? They kind of, this part of the jaw, it rotates, but then it goes forward. So like you get this hinge motion. So as your lower jaw opens, the bone actually at the top here, I'm terrible at remembering names, but right by the ear, that hinge location of your jaw, that actually pushes forward and then your jaw rotates back. So when you're doing your rotation, I always do like a little bit of a rotate and kind of just, I rotate from this section. So this makes a little bit more sense as the proper hinge. So I'll always do something like this. And then we can exaggerate this part right here. So I'm going to open up his, I don't always recommend doing it this way, but I'll do it this way from time to time just to get a little bit more motion in the ocean. Is I will just open this up just a little bit. That'll help get that section there. And now the most important part is to realize that the jawbone itself does not ever extend the neck. Like, what I mean is the neck does not ever extend the jawbone. So, but it's not always easy to see the silhouette of the jaw. So however wide your jaw is, the neck never exceeds that. So just kind of, that's like a good little mental note to know. So as you're blocking this stuff out, just keep that little part there in mind. Okay, let's pull this back. And let's just get this kind of shape here. And we're just going to be in the valley of the suck for quite some time, but that's okay. Let's get the transbrush, or not the transbrush, let's get the trim dynamic and just kind of plane this out. I'm going to plane this out because it's just easier for me to see what's happening. Get some nice shapes going on. Okay, let's do this. And then let's come in here and let's actually add in some internal, because Venom and Carnage are very snake-like. So I'm going to go insert sphere, and then we're going to get some of that. Let's actually take a look at chat real quick. Hey, sir, I have a student license, and can I renew my student license after 6 months? Yes. As long as you are a student, you absolutely 1000% can renew your student license. It just checks every 6 months as a precaution, just to make sure that you're a student. So it just rechecks it just re-authenticates you is basically it. So yeah, and since you're in school, depending on if you're in college, it's usually like 4 years, so you can do that for that time. Let's see here. Under the Zytomatic, yeah, maybe, yeah. That's actually on my list to do. I'm that guy that just knows what I'm looking at. I've studied anatomy enough to just know this is what I'm looking at, but my brain just I have the hardest problem retaining names that don't make sense to me, which is a problem. I actually struggle learning multiple languages for this very reason, and I don't know what it is. For example, I play drums as my musical instrument. When I hear a song, I have to play it on repeat a bunch of times before I even hear the lyrics. Most of the time, I don't hear lyrics. I hear the actual music track. So I just struggle with technical names like that. It's one of the weird things about me. Nowadays, I have a deep appreciation for ZBrush. It enables me to create anything I need. In addition, I'm relying on Cinema 4D and Blender to complement my creative toolkit. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been learning Cinema 4D more as well and connecting the pipeline between the two because, with Redshift, Redshift is in ZBrush, and it's the first iteration. There's still more to do with that, but I get it close to what I think looks pretty good in ZBrush, then I move it to Cinema 4D and get the final results. And I'm usually pretty happy with that workflow. Okay, so we got this in here. Let's actually start getting the teeth in. And I'm actually going to call this, what do we call this? I don't know. I'll just call it cheek gums. My naming conventions are the best. They're the best ever. Latin's is hard though. It's easier if you know Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. The names are sort of related in other words in other languages. For example, mastoid is very similar to madagar, which is Portuguese for chewing. Interesting. Oh, dude, that's super awesome. Okay, maybe I'll just bug you about anatomy names. You too, Amir? Yeah. Hey, okay, no, answer that question. But, no, wait. Your student license. Gosh. Does the student license work with class from ZBrush artists like Anna Carolina? Oliver, that's a great question. And the thing is I think they check for EDU or they have to be approved. I do know that the 3D Character Workshop with Shane Olson was approved for a one-time use of 6 months, but I don't know if Anna has the same thing. So the best, I can look into that, but your best approach might be to, if you're in Anna's mentorship, talk to her, because I talk to her all the time, and then see if she is approved, for that type of for that partnership and so forth. So I would say ask her directly if you're already in her mentorship. If not, I can reach out and see. I don't know is the answer, but I can find out. When I began my career, I used 3D Studio on Windows 3.1. It was incredibly challenging to model anything as it took hours of work. Wow, 3D Studio. I feel like I know that program. My first 3D experience was back in... my first experience was back in 2000 and 2001 when 3D programs. And so... it's actually an interesting story because I was lining myself up to become an animator because I was into 2D drawing, and animation was what my high school teacher specialized in, and that's what I was taking. I took that for 4 years, and in my last year of high school, he was like, "Hey, you've taken my class pretty much every year since you've been here for like 4 years. And I have nothing really more I can teach you other than like go do a project and I'll critique it. Like you've done everything, like my class hasn't changed. So I'd have to have a special class for you to take you further. And I just don't." He was like, "But the local college gave us a new computer and this computer has 3D software on it and I don't know how to use it. So here's the book." He hands me this giant book and he just says, "You know, if you can make this ball roll across the screen, you pass the class." And I was like, okay, thought it was easy. That was not easy. That was very difficult to get that done, especially since I was literally self-teaching myself. But what was cool about that process was that was actually my first introduction to figure out how to learn something. Because learning is a skill, right? Like that is definitely something that we end up learning how to do, and there's approaches for that. So in that approach, that was one of the things that I kind of like learned, and it was an old school machine. And I feel like it was either that or it was like an old Pixar machine, or it was like first iteration of Maya or something, but that sounds very familiar. So I'm curious, but there's no way of me ever going back and knowing if that's a thing. You know what I mean? Like I wish I could. Isn't 3D Studio 3ds Max? Maybe it was like before they named it 3ds Max. I know the history of ZBrush. I know the history of ZBrush. I don't know the history of 3ds Studio. It's quite possible. I know my first version of Photoshop was like, oh man, I was playing with Photoshop back in 2001, 2002. It was the first time I actually got my hands on it because my dad was a photographer and he ended up having to learn it for work. Boop. Ooh, that was a little too much. I'm going to just use the knife curve here, and I'm just shaping the tooth at this point. There we go. We're just getting the base tooth. Just get the move brush here, make this a little bit wider. There we go. Oh, the tooth is what it is. Well, I don't even know what I was saying there. Don't mind me. Okay, so we're going to do this. We're going to scale this down. Now, of course, this is Dynamesh, and I just scaled it. So here's the thing. If this happens to you, let me know. But real quick, the thing on Dynamesh is that, so I just set it here at a resolution of 88 at this size. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale this down. And then if I were to redo the resolution, that's going to drop it because the Dynamesh is viewport and size dependent. So Dynamesh resolution 88 at this size is much different than at this size. So when in doubt with something like teeth that you're doing, instead of trying to just find the new resolution, which you can by going to resolution slider, clicking on it, or pressing and holding the picker and just finding the resolution, I usually, when I need something low and to stay consistent that I'm going to duplicate, I just ZBrush it. I find that to be the easiest route forward, right? So with something like this, I think it's just way easier to give it a ZBrush. And that's what we're going to do. So first we're going to, I do want to quickly just reshape the back of this real fast. Take a little bit of meat off. Kind of smooth that down. Just a light little smooth relax. Give it just a little bit of a point. Okay, now before here, we're going to go ahead and ZBrush. And I don't need this really big, so we could say 1, adaptive size to 0, smooth groups. That's my secret sauce, guys. Like when I ZBrush, I always do adaptive size down to 0 with the adaptive button turned on, because it's going to adapt the different quads around the mesh, but keep them as even as possible. Smooth groups, when you smooth groups, every time you ZBrush, it smooths it a little bit. And in result, it kind of shrinks it. It's not technically shrinking it, it's more smoothing it and rounding those edges off, but that's enough where it's going to appear like it's shrinking. So I usually just turn that down, even if I don't have multiple groups. So when I ZBrush this, it's just gonna give me a lot cleaner of a design. And so I'm gonna half that again and give me something that looks like that. And that usually gets me the results that I need pretty quickly. All right, and then here I'm just going to do a little bit of a relax, smooth, and then now I have some pretty decent topology that I can actually come through and maybe pinch. So let's go B for brush, P, and then I, and I'm just going to pinch this section right here and just give me a little bit of a harder edge. So it looks just a little bit sharper on this side right there, and I think that's going to be good enough for what we need. And then now we can place this, scale this down, and that's a little too small. Place this and start getting this position the way that we would want this to be. So maybe lengthen that just a little bit. This is where I'm going to turn symmetry off, and now we're going to start doing some designs. And here's something that I like to do. This is something new I've started doing. I'm actually going to come through and just hide the bottom part. And then I'm going to use these folders over here, these version folders. So I'm going to hit V2. And what I'm going to do is actually just keep this one on and then the tooth itself. And I'm going to look at this from underneath. And the reason for this, and let's put this in a folder, we'll call this teeth, is that I want to be able to see how they're laying underneath the skull. And I'm going to have his teeth kind of protruding forward a bit. Say something like this. And I'm not worried about the size of each tooth currently. We can adjust that. I'm just worried more about the position. And I always think of Carnage kind of like more of a little bit of like a shark. So maybe he has some fangs, but like it's almost like I treat his mouth as if he has just a little bit more. Like I might give him a second row of teeth and just see what that looks like. But let's get these laid out. Holding control and just dragging. And just giving some variation. Putting some of them close, some of them not close enough. Let's put his cheeks up for just a second because the way his mouth works is a little bit different. They don't all go towards the back where Venom's kind of does. So I'm going to just kind of move that around. And they get a little bit smaller as we get back that way. So I will do that. Rotate this around. I'll say something like this might be where we stop on that. There we go. Now here I'm going to go ahead and just do auto groups. And then I will do a mirror and weld. Boop. On this side. And then what I'm going to do is auto group. I should have just waited to auto group because I'm just going to do some readjustment. Select this guy. So here, if you have everything, like all these selections, just open up the gizmo, control tap. Yep. Control shift tap on one of those and then move that around. And I'm going to break his symmetry a little bit with this guy. Maybe say something like that. Okay, it's looking pretty decent. And then we're going to do the same thing with the teeth. So we're going to call this upper teeth. And we'll get the bottom ones next. How's it going? What's happening? Is that being restreamed? It will be open. This will be available afterwards. Yes, the VODs are always available. Sorry. Let's see here. I missed a lot of stuff. I got focused. That's how I am with raps. Caitlin says, how you doing, by the way, Caitlin? Something about the cadence and the beats. I can't understand what rappers are saying. It's the weirdest thing. Yeah, right? Oh my God, I was still playing Pokemon at the Nice. What's going on, bro? It's really going really well, Eldo. How you doing? Yes, the stream, I'm going through restream, and the VOD will be available after the fact too. Yes. Okay, I actually realized here, let me see something. So I'm going to select all these guys right here. I could also just do this. Look, bam. Okay, mask those sections off right there. I'm actually going to just kind of move this back just a little bit because I actually think I do want to keep the symmetry of this front. So let me select this guy. So I'm just going to add another one. That's my point. Yeah, that's cool. There we go. All right, so we'll build off of that, which is nice. Now for here, now so see, this is still kind of like diamond shaped a little bit, right? This is not 1000% what I want. So what's cool here is that I'm just going to take a big old brush and I'm going to just be focusing on symmetry, and I'm just going to rearrange them to be a little bit more shoe shaped. Since human mouths are very much like a shoe horse type shape, I'm going to do the exact same thing. And then I'm going to do that with his head as well. So I'm going to push this in. And this is going to give me a little bit more of what I'm going for. And then here, I'm going to pull this chin out and reshape underneath. I think it's super important to look underneath your model when you're getting the final anatomy shapes in, because the reality is that there's so much stepping back that happens that you don't realize it. Like if you were to look at a profile, so here's a tip for human heads, right? If we just take a look at this for a second. So let me put this over here. Let me hit save. So I'm going to try save as just for a second. Okay, cool. Save. I'm going to hit save, and then let's actually do this. So I'm going to screen grab him, and then let's open up a tool. And I'm going to open up Ryan Kittleston's Ecrochet. And we're just going to look at the human anatomy for just a second. And this is something that's really, really cool that I don't think a lot of people notice at the gate, but everything steps backwards when you're focusing on the human head, right? So if we do something like, let's just grab this lasso. Actually, no, let's do this. So here, right in this section, right, is the eyebrow, which lines up really well with the upper lip. Like that's really important. And then, but you see that the upper lip here, it's like a staircase, right? So it steps back. So it's doing kind of one of these things where you're here, then you step in, then you come down, and you step in. That's a little here. Let's go down, boom. It steps back. It's always going back. Like this silhouette here is a really nice, clean step back of the model, right? And you can see this in the silhouette. You could see this kind of stepping stone. So this is how the face really operates. But then if we were to go underneath, everything is kind of drafted or is being sliced backwards. If we just look at the human skull, you'll see here that this is all being drafted backwards. Like if the center of the face right here in this section is just where where the nose is, where everything meets, right? Then everything else just kind of is like angled backwards. Like almost let's do this. Let's actually just isolate this section, look at it from underneath, and you'll see this kind of, this horseshoe type shape. And that's what I'm trying to get here on his face. So even though he's just like there's nothing part on a human face that's truly flat. Everything has planes and angles and cuts to it. So this is something that I'm really focusing on right now, is that I know where the eye sockets and stuff should be based on this, but because Carnage is based on a human character, even though he has like snake-like, dragon-like, features, I'm still wanting to honor this section of the head. And this is kind of my approach when I'm working on it. So that's what I'm really focused on at the moment, is getting that type of shape here. So in this case, putting the teeth here is allowing me to kind of see the flaw of it being of the internal shape. And now I can come through and I can kind of clean this up. So I can even push this further in if I wanted to. And then here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to push this in. Now, we're going to build on top of it, but right now I'm just trying to get that structure that I think would work really, really well for who his character is. And so I'm going to build up this cheekbone area now, or where that cheekbone should be. I'm not sold on the placement of these eyes right now. I'm just worried about the silhouette. The silhouette's the most important part. So I want that to look as good as possible. So I'm going to fill this in, re-smooth that down. And then here, let's actually get just the damn standard and kind of just figure out this lip area here. There we go. Something like that. We're going to do the same thing with the bottom. So will I do a retopology for this mesh? Yes. Yes, I will. Right now I'm using Dynamesh specifically for just the ability to just sketch out the character. We're still in a massive sketching phase. So we're gonna go until we get something that's useful. We're not gonna finish him today, because 2 hours to sculpt a whole thing, that's pretty wicked. But we'll get something. I mean, we're starting to see the character, which is really nice. He's starting to come through a little bit, but there's still so much more to do. So next week, we'll actually go ahead and probably finish him up. But already just, if you take the time to really look at the setup of your model and don't focus on any type of details until you're absolutely ready, focus on that silhouette, and things are going to be a lot better for you ultimately. Now, I pushed this in, but I'm kind of going to pull this back out just a little bit. But I want to respect the shape. That's the most important thing. So I want that U shape still, but I want to kind of flare this out. And because it's Carnage, here's the cool part. We can just get stupid with these teeth. And we can just really just start tearing this open and get these things looking gnarly, right? Because we are also dealing with a comic book character, and comic book characters, although I will say there is anatomy there, and they respect it very well because the artists at companies like Marvel and DC are just some of the best in the world. Even though that they know anatomy so well, there are so many rule breaks that just occur with 2D illustration. So here, we want to just make sure we stick to our creative control with the refinement based in anatomy and realistic. So, you know, we still get to go a little nuts. So like here, I'm just kind of flaring this area out and just keeping everything really just loosey-goosey. And I'm never working on one thing for too long. I'm always moving around. I want this model to kind of go through. All right, let's do the teeth next on the bottom. Now here's the cool part. We could cheat. Yeah, we could cheat. Just duplicate this. Turn off symmetry. Rotate the sucker around. Cheat as in we're in ZBrush, so we could do what we want. And we can come through and start placing this. Now here's the thing though. I'm not just gonna do this. That's just not gonna happen. What I am gonna do is I just copied those teeth right from here to here, but this is a mirror image. Like this isn't what exactly I want. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna take one of these teeth, okay, and I'm gonna delete the rest. I'm actually gonna delete hidden. You could just copy the one teeth. You can even make an IMM brush, but this is just the way I'm choosing to do it because for me, this makes the most sense, and I want it to be as natural as possible, so to speak, right? So I'm going to come through, and then I'm going to hide the upper teeth, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And already with the jaw, I now see flaws. Looking at it from this is too round. And I don't want that. So let's fix this. So I'm going to hide this section. And you know what? I'm just going to hide all of this. There we go. The reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to use the move infinite, which infinitely moves the depth, the depth of the viewport. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up flattening this out. Now, something to note on most male characters and some female characters, but for the most part, this is a male anatomy bit of knowledge, is that your chin, right, the width of your chin is the same width of your mouth. So, but in this case, we get to break that rule. We get to break that rule because it's Carnage. He's ridiculous, right? So what I do want this to be a little bit squared off. So that's what I'm going to do, and this will help me kind of just move all of that in depth. And then I'm just going to push this down, say something like this. Give me a little bit of depth. Now with this guy right here, this is where I'm really going to bust some rules here, is that I'm going to, like I said, treat him kind of like a shark. What do we got here? Hey, what's up, Emperor Cheese? How you doing? That was a cool tip and a cool way to teach it. Oh, thanks, Justin. Thank you, thank you. Nice. Different for people. Yep, absolutely. Now here I'm going to turn on local symmetry, but without dynamic. In ZBrush 2023, we have a dynamic feature that allows you to move things completely off world center and still keep true symmetrical based on the gizmo's location. That's much different now if you turn off dynamic. So this is, if you turn off dynamic, it's just like local symmetry as you might know it if you're still in 2022. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that so that when I scale to that center point, or to the object center point rather. And then we're going to start getting smaller. I'm going to look at it more from the side, and I want these teeth to get kind of nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. I love that movie. If you know that movie quote, let me know in the chat. And then we can be friends. Not that we're not friends already, because all of you here, we're all friends. All well here, Ian. Thank you. Hope all is well there. Nice Carnage. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, all is well. just busy, super busy. As you guys know, we are prepping for the ZBrush Summit. And guess what? Okay, you know what? Small break. That's also something I highly recommend is small breaks in between. So with that, you're going to get a small ad by me because it's the ZBrush Summit, baby. It's the ZBrush Summit. And guess what we just announced? Workshops. So if you guys are going to be here in person, register for these workshops. The team and I got together with some amazing artists around the world. So we have Henry Cervanka. You know him because he did the car that we showcased with Redshift. He's also done he does a lot of really advanced hard surface modeling in ZBrush, more vehicle. Like, he's done some amazing work. And then we have Pablo Munoz. Come on, there's no introduction for that. Like, if you don't know Pablo Munoz, stop what you're doing and just go research him because you should know him. Got Patrick 4D. Patrick is awesome because he's one of the new ZBrush Live artists. He does cooking with ZBrush, so a really awesome dude. And then we also have Joseph Drust. In Drust We Trust is here. Yes, you heard that. You heard that. He's here and he's coming and he's doing a workshop. ZBrush usually with game character creation. A lot of really cool stuff there. Scan data is going to be a part of that, so you want to check that one out. We have Michael Pavlovich. Come on. Again, you should know him. He's going to do some characters and posing, and he's going to use some really cool tools. And then we have Furio. He's going to be here. Again, another super hard surface artist. Really amazing. But not only just is he hard surface, but he deals with characters. So Furio is awesome. You want to check him out. Got Michael DeFeo as well. Amazing stylized characters. And then we have Anna Carolina. She's doing ZBrush to Unreal Engine. So if you're going to be here in person and you want to take an exclusive class, an exclusive workshop with some of the best artists that we could find, get in there, sign up immediately. Each class has 15 seats, so you're definitely going to want to check that out. So boom. Yeah, Furio. Exactly. So Rodolfo, you're going to fly all the way over here and take his class. Right? Batman, yes. All right. Quicks, you are amazing. So there it is. And then, of course, too, come on, guys. Of course, we have the ZBrush Sculpt Off. We have the ability to have you guys register. The Sculpt Off this year, even though it's going to be in live, ZBrush Summit's going to be live and in person this year. We're coming back with our 10-year anniversary. However, the Sculpt Off, we are retaining that as an online thing because so many people are interested in it, and we have so many contestants every year. Since the cove of the pan that had happened, we basically, it got shifted to online, and we've seen and met some amazing artists who have come around and participated. So we decided to keep that as well. So please go register, check out the rules. And coming this Friday, myself, Paul Gabriel, Louis Tucci, we're going to be here. We're going to be doing an Ask Me Anything event about the Sculpt Off. So if you have questions about the Sculpt Off, then we are going to be there. So ask us anything Friday at noon, Los Angeles time. Come hang out. Now, back to the sculpture. Yes, that's how I said it, Rodolfo. I'm coming for all yours. Yes, absolutely. Yes, 1000%. 1000% Hannibal. Let's do it. Let's do it, buddy. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. You guys, I can't explain to you. I've been like holding that in for some time. We finally got a chance to announce it, and I'm super stoked. So, all right, let's rotate this around. We're going to give him a big old frickin' tooth here, more towards the middle. I'm going to reshape it just a little bit and even make that a little bit taller. Give him some, we're just going to give him some weird chompers. I'm flying there mounted on a freaking eagle if I have to. Oh, yes, you are. Do it. Yeah, guys, like I'm so excited for this. Here's the crazy part. Okay, check this out. So the crazy part about the ZBrush Summit is that I started attending the ZBrush Summit back in 2016, which was the first time, believe it or not, out of the nine to 10 years of using ZBrush, I had only heard of the ZBrush Summit back in 2016, believe it or not. And I was also a super, I don't know if you can believe this, but I was super shy and nervous to talk about anything because I just assumed, I've seen, you know, like following Grassetti and some of the other top artists in the world that like inspired me early on. I just thought my work sucked. And so I didn't like really talk to anyone the first time I went there, but it was so amazing. And I just kept coming back every year since. And I wish back then I spoke to anybody. Like I remember like looking at Shane Olson because I was considering taking his class back then. And I was like, it was 2017, I think I saw him and I wanted to take his class and I was just like so nervous about it. And I was like, oh, I should go talk to him. And then I didn't talk to him because I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to take his class and it'd be kind of weird if I went and spoke to him, but then wasn't sure. If you're nervous, so my point, if you're nervous about coming here and hanging out and talking to us, we're all artists and we've all been there. And please pull me aside and be like, yo, Ian, what's happening? Let's talk. Like, do not hesitate to come in and chat because I would love to chat with every single one of you. So you're here, stop me, say hi, and let's hang out and let's talk art, let's talk food, let's just hang out. So that's a solid invitation. Just come in and hang out because quite frankly, the community is just the best community I've ever been a part of. And I just love every one of you guys. So please feel free to stop in and just hang out with me. Please. All right, here's another little random fun fact. Is that your chin. All right, check this out, guys. I don't know. Let's do this full screen real fast. I'm going to go full screen. Here's my face. How you doing? Check this out, too. I see this a lot. I make this mistake all the time, or at least I used to make this mistake all the time. And then when the day I noticed it, I can never stop on noticing it. And that is your clavicle relationship to your chin. Look at that gap. Like, look how far back your clavicle is to your chin. So that being said, okay, even though this is a crazy, ridiculous character, that rule, I'm like making sure that I'm constantly looking at the position of the chin in correlation to his clavicle, and I will not be moving that clavicle forward. However, the distance between his neck, the front of the neck, and the back of the neck, that's the same distance from the base of the skull down, and then here, like the distance of your neck is the same as in the back, right? So this is where, these are like little things that you start noticing. I keep hitting the wrong button. You start noticing, and so for me, I'm just like, you know what? Let's come through here, and I'm gonna pull this down just a little bit more, give this a little bit more angle, so that I have a little bit more length. Even bodybuilders have necks, even though it's just their muscles are so massive. The traps are so massive, it just ends up like, quote, hiding that, right? So I'm gonna pull that down and give that some length. And then again, too, if I wanna thicken his neck a little bit, which I do, his neck's a little skinny, I'm gonna do that, but I'm not gonna exceed his jawline. And if I do end up exceeding the jawline, I keep hitting BMV so fast that I keep switching to the black paint. So I'm going to widen this jaw just a smidget, okay, and keep that area. And then we're going to widen the top of his head just a little bit because this is also starting to look a little funky. And we need to just correct these types of shapes. So these are all little things that you end up starting to do. That'll just make things a little bit better. And usually the widest part of your head is towards the top where your hairline is. That's the widest spot. So in doing that, we need to honor that section. Oh, I locked my camera. Don't do that. Let's see here. Maxon takes no accountability. He just comes like just straight up bear hug. Wait, we can't wait to meet some people at the summit. I know, right? It's gonna be awesome. Artists are not the most social recognized types. We've all been shy and awkward ones, 1000%. I leaned into being weird with myself because I just thought that was, why not? I still get nervous and shy sometimes, but I think I like, it's interesting. The Cove of the Pan kind of like pushed me into a more introverted state than I was ever used to. And then one day I was just like, forget it, man. Like, life's too freaking short. I'm just going to go nuts. And I'm going to just introduce myself to a million people. And ever since then, it's just been quite wild. So, all right. So, doing pretty well with this sculpture piece currently. But I want to start refining some of these areas. And right now, the thing is that we were talking about human skulls. And if I go back to this human skull here and just zoom all the way in, the other aspect is that we have some stepping back here between the jaw and the cheekbone. And the number one thing that's wrong with my current sculpture at the moment in this process, wrong as in like we just haven't gotten to it yet, is that this has almost no step to it. This is just kind of pulled out. So that being said, guess what we're going to do, guys? We're going to push this in. So I'm going to come through here. I'm going to go B, T, D. Nope, we're going to hit B for brush, T for trim, dynamic, yes. And now I'm going to start trimming this in a little bit. What's crazy about the jawline is that the silhouette of the jaw almost blends in with the shape of the neck. And that's kind of annoying, right? So again, we're just taking that kind of approach with where things are in correlation with the human body and just honoring that aspect. This area right here, this should be pushed out a little bit more. It's too flat. It's not quite what we want. So we want a little bit of depth here. So really just starting to honor that section. And it's been a while since I saved, so let's do that. Sculpt Off Practice in IR Sculpts Discord every Friday. Absolutely, Chase. Yes, this Friday too in my Discord we're doing more practice as well. In fact, real quick and in a hurry, let me do this. Let me do something real fast. Let me share a link to that. Let me share a link and we'll go from there. So let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. Yes. Here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to figure out how this works. Just copy that out. Perfect. I'm going to send this to myself via another way because I don't have this installed on my computer here. So I'm going to come through here and let's just send this to myself here. Let's go. Boom. Let's go paste. Cool. Now that I got that. Oh yeah, you went on Ghost. Yeah, you went on a little bit of a Ghost. Here, I'm gonna copy that here. So if you guys want to come every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, what we do is we are currently going over. It's an actual Sculpt Off, so you're there. We pick a theme randomly, and then myself and my mods, we come in and we start, we sculpt with you, alongside of you. One of us walks the floor, and we kind of watch, and we give tips and tricks and things that we think we'd be doing, and kind of also give like little hints and reminders of the best approaches. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what would end up happening is that at the end of the Sculpt Off, we then talk about the sculpt itself, things we like about it, things we don't like about it, things we can improve on. Those little avenues, giving you some actual practice. But here's the thing: if you are going to be participating in the Sculpt Off, then what I implore you to do immediately is go register and then pick your theme. Because in the Sculpt Off practice, it's random themes. You only get 15 minutes to think about it. That's to help you kind of think on the fly. But in the Sculpt Off, you should start planning your sculpt now, because it's based off of, you know, fantasy characters, and you have to pick 1 out of 10 characters for the Sculpt Off. So you want to make sure you go through and actually check that out as fast as you can. Get that book, because you can go there and, you know, start looking at reference and, you know, get a plan. You want to plan together when you go into the Sculpt Off. It's 3 hours, which sounds like a lot, but believe you me, once you're in it, 3 hours goes by so fast. I mean, even just streaming, like, I would be failing the Sculpt Off if I was competing, and this was the piece I was doing. I'd be failing, because that's the other aspect too. It has to be one of the characters this year that we pick, so you want to definitely go see that. Anyway, well, so leading to that, that's what Friday's about. The Ask Me Anything, so you can come and you can chat with us. But for my Discord, we're doing the Sculpt Off, so actual practice. So be there. We'll love to have you. Come in, and it's a good time. Last week was Evil Pumpkins, because I love pumpkins. All right, I'm just kind of giving me a little bit of refinement of his chinny chin chin. So you see here, I'm starting to get this little lip action. That's what I want. Again, because that gets pushed in just a little bit. We still have a lot to do. And you know what? This is not dynamic enough for me. So I'm going to save this real fast. And then let's do this. Let's go transpose, and let's go T-pose mesh. Yeah, so when you render, and you're going to be rendering. What the heck's happening? What? Getting some weird thing. I'm trying to turn on this guy. Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter. Let's do this. Let's mess this up. Yeah, for the ZBrush Summit, you have to render. Now, you can render, this year you can render either in ZBrush with like a BPR render, a Redshift render also works, but it has to be done in ZBrush. What is happening here? Hold on. What? Okay, my Windows key is acting weird. Hold on one second. I must have hit something, because all of a sudden my gizmo's not showing up. So we'll just do it manually. I don't know, my keyboard's pulling up a weird menu thing. Okay. All right, yes. So here, I'm just looking to break the, oh my God. What is happening? I don't know what's going on. Okay, that's fine. Send it back. Hey Ian, have you had the chance to mess around with the character creation post tool plugin yet? I've tried it and really love working with really loving the workflow. Yes, I actually was one of the first people to come in and help beta test that with Real Illusion, and I absolutely love it. I have not dedicated a project to it currently, but yes, I helped beta test it. It was really awesome. Okay, hold on one second. I'm actually having a little bit of technical difficulties right now, because for some reason every button I'm pressing is like opening up a different menu outside of ZBrush. So give me 1 second, because I'm getting a little frustrated with it. You know what? Let me just try this. Let me try this. Let me save this. And let me just turn it off and on again. See if it's just something I did. It's probably everything I did. I'm a little tired today. If you haven't noticed, I'm not super, like, I'm chipper, but not like, I'm just exhausted. Oh, when you oh, you know what? Because I do have Japanese keyboard on here. Thank you, Emperor Cheese. Let me check that too if it continues. Let me just load my model real fast. Let's drag this out. Okay. Yeah, okay. Restart, which is good. Okay, that's fine. All right, if that happens again, I'll double check that. That's a great thing. I do have multiple languages. Okay. Okay. I'm going to be pushing this up a little bit. Say something like that. It took me weeks to figure that out. ZBrush would stop responding with hotkeys being weird. And then you accidentally enabled Korean or Japanese. Oh, cool. Okay. All right. That's good to know. That's super good to know. Yep. All right. I'll check that next time. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's smooth this down. And then here, let's go ahead and let's start getting some of this in here. Now again, we broke symmetry for this. So let's get this situated. Actually gonna push this in just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. So this part right here, I'm actually treating this a little bit more like like a skull axe. Like I'm going to carve this part in and then have this cheekbone flare out. Say something like that. In fact, actually, I should do that symmetrically. So come back in, just repeat that. I want that to be a little bit more symmetrical, so I'll turn the symmetry back on. So yep, that's fine. Have that come through and flare out. There we go. There we go. And I'm going to use the trim dynamic. Trim dynamic is one of my favorite to get a little bit more of a planar effect, a little bit more, just a little bit more, yes, a little bit more sexy, a little bit more just what I want. I don't know how else to describe that. It's a feeling. Smooth that down. Yeah, that's starting to, it's looking wild, but I'm okay with wild. I'll roll that through just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Give him a little bit more of that shoehorn look on the inside. Open this mouth up. Yeah. And what's interesting about the inside of his mouth is I'm going to treat this a little bit more like a snake. So I'm going to bring in some of this area here, kind of pop this hole in the back, just refine. And again, I'm just doing this quickly. I'm just like coming in and ripping and tearing this up. Keeping it really ugly, but that's okay. Now what I want to do is I actually want to find the character just a little bit more, because right now there's some things about it that I'm just like, we're not quite there, but we're getting pretty close. And so like his profile's looking okay. Let's do this real fast. So I'm actually going to mask this section. Actually, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to proxy pose this because it's dense enough. It's dense enough where I don't want to rebuild too many times. So I'm going to hit proxy pose. I'm going to reduce this to a lower resolution, soften this up, come through here. Now that I have some of this area, kind of pull that back just a little bit, kind of open up these traps just a bit, and unproxy pose that. That keeps my Dynamesh model the way I want it. And now let's focus on this area back here. Let's use that move brush. Pull this back just a little bit. There we go. No, not that. There we go. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. It's looking a little bit better. Just kind of just carving. Like all of this is just reduction. Let's hit save real fast, and then let's add some color to this, because I feel that color usually helps me see the character just a little bit more. So I'm going to do just kind of like a deeper red. Now here's something I'm going to do too. This is a little cheat, little material cheat that I love to do. So if you're wanting your characters to look a little bit more clayish and a little bit more like subsurface scattery, check this out. So I'm going to come here and I'm actually going to go with Skin Shade 4. And now this is pretty bright, so I'm going to dial this down to a darker red, okay? And then I'm going to come in here and just say, you know what, let's just fill this color. And then let's fill this with a kind of off-white, not true white, because you want true white for highlights. And then same thing with his tongue. Let's give his tongue just a little bit of a fleshy tone. And then same thing with his cheeks. We'll kind of keep that a bit of a fleshy tone. And then for his teeth, we're going to lean a little bit more like a kind of off-whitish yellow for now. Just makes more sense with his bones type structure, right? Now, okay, so this is where we're currently at, just for a little bit of color. Now, I'm still going to sculpt mostly in black and white, but, and like, when I usually do sculpting, sometimes I'll just hide the color and I'll do something like that. But to keep this kind of, this material a little bit more waxy or subsurface scattery, what I'll do is I'll come up to I'll go up to render, and I'll go up to my render properties, and I'm going to turn on wax preview. And then under the material that I'm choosing, I'll go up to material, and I'll come up to wax modifiers, and I'll turn this up. And it might be a little hard to see, but if I were to turn this off real fast, the material, so if I were to turn that off, this is with it off. That's off. And then if I come here and I turn this on, turn this up a little bit, it just gives me that little bit more like kind of just waxy subsurface scattered kind of tone. And I dig that a bit. And then now I'm going to come through here, and then because he's Carnage and he has like black and stuff all over his face, he's not just red, right? He has like black mouth, black eyes. We're going to come in here real quick with just the paintbrush. Nothing super fancy. And then I'm going to come in, and then I'm just going to start painting areas that would be kind of black. And again, I'm not going to go true black, but I'm going to go close enough. Now we're nowhere near finished. This is just a placeholder for me to start seeing the character. But I like this kind of waxy feel to it. It's just something that I dig. And then get a little bit of black in here, a little bit of shadow. Now, his eye placement, I think is almost where I want it. So we're going to come through here and just give it a little bit of paint just around the edge. He almost has like an eyeliner look to him. But he also has a bunch of veins coming out. Now, I'm not going to worry about the veins. That's secondary forms, even moving into tertiary forms for some aspects of it, since they would be final. So With that being said, I'm not going to worry too much about veins at the moment. I'm more just worried about getting the overall feel of it. He's also very fiberish. Carnage has like a little bit of interesting fiber feel to him. So we'll get a little bit of color on here. And I'm still going to work without the color, but I'm going to have this color so I can turn it on and off and just see what that looks like. And a way you could do this too, you can come up here to render and go to fade opacity, and then you can work a little bit more like this. And I do this a lot too, where I'll come in and I'll start working with this tone. Again, if I want a deeper material, so I could still see that color coming through, and that helps me kind of feel the vibes, but it's not intrusive. So I can still see the actual material underlining it. And again, I like a little bit of a waxy feel, so I'll turn that modifier up just a little bit. It's just kind of my preference. And then you can kind of work like this and start bringing this stuff in. So these are little things that I'll do sometimes to just start seeing the character for what it is. And then here, I'm just going to go ahead and let's get this dynameshed here. And this way too, when you dynamesh, right? Like typically when you dynamesh, if I come here into dynamesh, I would lose color if the color was off, but here the color stays on, so the color stays true. It's because I'm not hiding the color, I'm just showcasing in the viewport that the color is just muted with that opacity view. So just another little way to do that. This will be Carnage, yeah. I'm going to turn on dynamic. There we go. So now we're going to start adding in some of these little gum connection points. And this is what I mean by this resolution is actually fighting me. That's too low. We're only at like 0.5 mil, and I'm starting to add details that just are getting too crunchy. And I want a little bit more refinement. So let's go down to geometry and let's add some resolution. Let's go with like 432. Yeah, 1 million, that's fine. So I'm going to add these parts here, just kind of get that wraparound. There we go. And this is an asymmetrical additive. There we go. Kind of focus this inward a little bit. Now the inside, right here, what I'm going to do, this can be done symmetrically because we're now working on the inside, but I could pull this back a little bit. Thin that out and let some of these teeth be exposed, which will just give more dynamic feel to the mouth as a whole. So I'll reach this up just a little bit, and then we'll sculpt back any of that information that we want. There we go, say something like that. Any tips on composition? Yes, absolutely. Give me 1 second, and composition is super important. The biggest tip I would say verbally is, and no joke when I say this, go look at some amazing headshot photography. Type in headshot photography. And the thing is with composition, the rule of thirds is your best friend. And what I mean by that, so if you take an image, so let's do this. So if I were to come in here and just say headshot. Photography. In fact, actually, you know what? There's a great headshot photographer, Peter Hurley. He's based in New York. His headshot stuff is amazing. But when it comes to any type of render tips, photography is something I lean in heavily. Now, my dad's a photographer. I took up photography. I did wedding photography for such a long time. but this actually comes through so often. So this is actually Peter Hurley. When I was studying photography like 15 years ago, this is a guy I watched a lot. But the big thing is rule of thirds is such a key part. So if we take a look at just this photo in itself, there's so many things that are captivating about it. But the first thing is the eye line is at the upper third. If you were to break this down into sections of like, this is 1/3, this is another third, and this lower third. And even though this head is center, the fact is that he is not truly center. He's actually, his eye line is above center line, which is super attractive. So he's placed in a rule of thirds. He's center on the frame, but his eyes are a little bit higher. And the other important part too is filling the frame. Filling the image is super important. Notice that his hairline, his head gets cut off just a little bit. There's so much information here that your brain naturally fills in the fact that there's information. The big thing I see in a lot of renders is that everybody wants to show every aspect of their model or their sculpt. And I get that. As a sculptor, I want you to see every little detail of it. I don't want to hide anything. But the danger of that is that it doesn't look good. So don't be afraid to clip off certain areas that don't bring anything closer to the dynamic of the story. If we take a look at this one, this is actually super dynamic. Out of these two, I'm more gravitated towards her. Why? Because she follows what I call the truest form of rule of thirds, which is her eye line, again, is on the upper third, and her head is on the right third of the actual image, screen right. So her head is like a target. It's like, boom, it's popped right in there in the corner of the rule of thirds, both on the right side of the frame and the upper frame. And still, same thing. I know she has a head, so I don't need to see the top of her head. And I get everything framed exactly as I want. So what does this mean as far as as far as modeling or rendering or compositing your character, right? So let's actually take another character that maybe, let me just save this real fast. Let me hit save. And then here, let's actually take Earthquake, for example. He's a beautiful soul. So I already hit save. So I'm going to go ahead and take Earthquake, and I'm going to say yes. So now, as far as it goes with, let's actually turn the fade opacity back down. So when it comes to like your final render, first things first is that your final render document size needs to be at least 1500 pixels wide or tall. Everything else doesn't matter. So once you have that, you want to basically fill the frame in a way that's complementary to your character. This character is very vertical. He's standing up and down, and there's no elements left or right of him. So there's a lot of dead space, right? And I want to showcase him in all of his glory, but look what happens when I fill the frame. I'm losing more of who he is, and it's really hard for me to really showcase. I have to zoom all the way in here, and I'm fighting a horizontal plane with a vertical character. So what you can do, especially in the Sculpt Off, is you can come up here to document, and let's switch this around. Let's actually make this, we'll switch it at 1280 wide by 2122, which I think is what that was, and then say resize, and say, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to clear it with Control N, which is both on Mac and PC. And then I'm going to come in here, and now I actually have a lot more information to work with. I can also work with the perspective. In this case, this is set to 35 millimeter. That's a little aggressive, so I'm going to turn him to 85 because I think that looks nice. Now he automatically fills more of the frame. There's less dead space and there's more frame here. So now what I can do is let's figure out a good spot for him. If I wanted to show the whole character, then let me actually see what that would look like. Now, his face is super interesting, so I need to kind of like place him in a spot that's super helpful. So again, looking on just the rule of thirds, if I angle him a little bit more this way, and maybe I come through and actually like just do something a little bit more like this, right? And maybe I can angle him down so I get a little bit more top-down angle. Something like this might seem to be a little bit more attractive. Again, we'd have to like actually sit here and focus on what it is we want to showcase. If I don't think the boots are super important, look, I'm going to cut those off. Maybe his head is super important. Now, here's the other aspect. You're only getting what you're seeing in the viewport, but check this out. Look at the silhouette. This silhouette is actually showing you the full render. So that means that I'm too close, and I can actually zoom out All right, there it is. Now I can see. So this may not be what exactly I want. So let's actually do this. Let's give me a little bit more width with a little bit more height. So not true, you know, not true squared, but let's just get a little bit wider. So let's say, let's go back up here to document. Let's open that up just a little bit, resize it, say, yep, that's fine. Clear this. Let me zoom out. There we go. So not truly squared, drag my image out, and here we go. Okay, this is a little bit better. So now this is showcasing my character a lot more. I could show more of him if I want, but now I could start really like playing with what it is I want to showcase. And again, I don't really need to have every aspect of him showing, just enough information. So maybe I think that the fist is a little bit more interesting. So again, I'll come through here and I'm just gonna really just figure out a good solid angle. And maybe this is a little bit more what I'm going for. I'm filling the frame, I'm showing a lot of it, I'm cutting off what's not necessary. We know he has feet, there's nothing cool down here. This is not a cool, it's not. So I'm not gonna worry about that, but I still get who he is and what he's about just based on the fact that I'm cutting off his feet a little bit. But I'm alluding to the fact that he has legs. I'm not hiding that. Like, I'm not doing this. So I'm doing more something like this. So these are things that you should highly be considering. And we see these acts, like if we were to come in here and type in like, let's call it, I'm trying to figure out like something that might be kind of cool. Like headshot photography is a really good one. Does he do anything else besides headshot photography? No, headshot photography is his specialty. Let me Google this offsite just for a second. I want to make sure that I'm not coming up with something that's not interesting enough. Or that's, yeah, I want to make sure. Okay, here we go. Here's a really cool shot of somebody. So this is a really another good example of composition where you have the character, you know who this character is. This character is obviously a fitness model. He's working out, right? But there's the line of actions are super important in his pose, but more importantly, the composition of his characters here, especially something like this. Again, the composition, I don't need to know who he really is, but what he's doing tells me all that information. That storytelling is super important. Same thing with this. Same thing with this, right? These are all super dynamic. You don't need to show every aspect of it. You need to show the important aspects of it. This is all in the rule of composition. If you do like a full character, then really go solid, like make it interesting, make it dynamic, and really push that and don't be afraid. So if you're gonna back out, like this is such a good example of proper dead space with line of action that alludes to this upper area, but brings me back down into the actual model. So when you're final rendering, these are all things that you absolutely need to focus on in order to stand out amongst the crowd. If you just slap a character like this and say, here you go, I'm done, this is probably gonna get overlooked because there's nothing interesting about it. But if you come up here and like get in here and make me see this character and find new angles and new avenues and ways of actually taking a look at it, like even this in itself, if I were to like, Earthquake needs a headshot, like this might be kind of cool. Something like this might be kind of cool. I'd like tweak it just a little bit more and add some more depth to it to line it up to something that looks more like this. So really, really focus in on what would be considered first-class photography. I think that's going to really benefit and really help you stand out as a competitor. So hopefully that was helpful. McDonald's, I love your thought on that. Absolutely. But yeah, it's always super interesting. Now it's a fantastic question. How much time do we have? Okay, we only have a few more minutes. Let me come back here. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything as well. It's been fun hanging out. Hey, what's up, Carbon? We got a few more minutes. We're talking about composition, rule of thirds, all that good stuff. So yeah, so really pay attention to the silhouette, guys. The silhouette's super important. That'll show you so many things too. Okay, so let's go back here, render, let's go to fade opacity, and let's actually switch this over. I'm gonna do a darker material. The other thing I like to do too, and this is a little hot tip, if you go to preview AO, so render, preview AO, and turn this on, this will help you get a little bit more depth and stuff like that in your models, and that does come through on like some BPR renders, so that's always super fun. Okay, let's smooth. I'm gonna smooth a lot of this out. Smoothing at a higher resolution is actually pretty cool because it gets rid of a lot of the unnecessary details but holds most of the form. And then let's actually, we need to take this in just a little bit. We need to reshape the back of his head. It's funky. Let's not be afraid. Let's cut in. So actually got pretty decent sketch. Again, not super final, but this is something that can definitely be refined and worked on, which is nice. This is some of the stuff that I just ended up loving about ZBrush, is that you're just really able to like just come in here and just play a little bit, no matter what your style is or how long it takes you. It's always just kind of nice to come in here and just play a little bit. Oh, the other big tip too that we'll probably regurgitate a bunch of times during the actual AMA, but which is this Friday, is if you are not going to see it in the final render, like sketch your character out really quickly, but if you're not going to see it in the final render, don't sculpt it. Like I'm sculpting the back of the head, but if I was going to show Venom as my, or Carnage as my, you know, final, my final bit, I would not be focusing on the back of the head unless I absolutely needed to. I'd get most of that in there as much as I could, but there's no need to come in and do stuff that's just unnecessary. So kind of keep that in mind too while you're working. And I'm going to say this just to say this, not everything needs to start from a sphere. Okay? 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 As long as it ships with ZBrush, you can start with that. Thanks, man. Yeah, this is pretty rough still, but I am actually enjoying the majority of how it's starting to look. Just focusing on the big shapes. It's getting a good chunk of that. His head's still a little funky, and I think that's because this is too thin in the back here. So what I'm going to do actually is we'll focus on widening this part. I'm going to take the trim, kind of blend that in. I want that to be just a little bit wider. Because again, this one's a little bit interesting to find, but the hairline on a human head, that's the widest spot of the head, right? Everything else kind of dips down from there. Everything gets a little bit angled. So with that being said, it looked a little weird. But here I'm actually going to just kind of come in and just refine this avenue. Just get this area in, but trim this down on this side so that I've widened the top part of his head. And that looks a little bit better. So then let's do this. So I have this kind of eyes in here. There we go. Yeah, that's looking a little bit sleeker. So I'll tell you what, probably what's going to happen is I'm probably going to, when I get a little bit of spare time, if I'm able to, I might push them a little bit further, but we'll end up doing some detail work next week, which will be a lot of fun. The idea is get them close enough for what we actually want. There we go. And then let's do this too. I just want to get a little bit more plane shapes in. So here I'm actually going to take the dam standard, and I'm actually going to kind of push this in a little bit. Kind of give him, so this area right here, the corner of the eyes is typically the darkest spot. It's the deepest spot in almost every skull on the planet. Like the very corner, that's going to be like the deepest spot you're going to see. That's where the darkest shadows go, no matter what. Like that is the darkest shadow point. So I want to carve that area in here and give that some depth. Like that. Just give it a little height to it as well. And then because this corner, this also has some depth to it, right? So I'm actually going to come through and maybe let's go B, D, T. Let's actually give that just a little bit of a cut in. This won't be as much. Think of it as like the corner of your eye. There's still some depth there, but it's not like a lot. It's just enough, right? So you want just a little bit of information right in that area. Just to kind of refine. I'm still keeping things a little bit plainer. I'm coming in and flattening it out. I'm not worried about surface details. Just come in, grab this section. So this way when I look at it, it gives me just a little bit more depth to it. And then we can blend that in just a little bit. It doesn't have to be super crazy. Blend that in. And then here we can come in, start getting like a little bit of that lip action. There we go. Let's get some of that in place. This is obviously going to be asymmetrical, but that's close enough. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome. Yeah, these are all things I think about when I'm sculpting, because that's the avenue. Like little things like that, in my opinion, is what makes a sculpture pop. It's what you see, but you don't see it. Like it's interesting. One of the things I learned in my traditional sculpting class was that artists. The way this is a quote I heard. I think it's a Da Vinci quote, but artists see an exaggerated form of reality. If artists only saw reality, we wouldn't be artists. Like we exaggerate every aspect, right? And we have to think about that. And what's cool about that quote is it made me think about little things that I think about on a day-to-day basis, especially when I'm doing sculpture work. And this was one of them. Like. It's like when I see a piece of art, I notice I'm always going in on like the random stuff, that I'm like, oh, that looks pretty dope. Like, what's up with this piece, right? Those are things I like constantly look at. And then I noticed that I have recently, within the last few years, started applying that into my own works. So, kind of like when you look at like the way people see shape, like I started studying Bridgman. Bridgman is an artist, a 2D artist who he just draws straight lines. His entire artwork is just straight lines. They will be refining, but like he doesn't do this. Like check this out. Like if we were to use this sphere as a canvas, subdivide that a few times. Like if he wanted to draw like a question mark, right? Then what he would do is he would come in, draw a straight line. Draw a straight line, 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 and then another line. Right, he wouldn't do this because this right here, when you look at a person, and if you take a look at a person, like let's just say, let's come here with this Avenue. Let's take a look at just the demo soldier for a second, right? Or you know what, let's bring up Julie. Poor Julie. I've never used Julie, so let's look at Julie. Hi, Julie. So if I were to turn the silhouette on, completely on with absolutely no color, and let's pick like a super flat material, right? What you're gonna start noticing are the planes in the body. Like if you don't look at the planes, if you look at just the soft format, right? Even with her body, quote, smooth. Like let's turn on dynamics. Let's up this. When you look at this, this all looks smooth, right? This all looks clean and soft. But if we were to change the material to a thin outline, even though there's smoothness to it, what you might notice is that if I were to take, let's say, a knife curve here, this right here, this is one straight line here. This is another straight line. And then this curve is based on the connection of this line and this line. But if I were to come out and draw this, look, it drops, which means that this is a straight line, which means then from this point, this is a straight line. And then from this point, this is a straight line, right? So if we were to look at the planar version of it, boom, 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 all straight lines. So when you see that, like his studies has like opened up the way human form looks to me, and it's really cool. And I definitely implore, like, take a look at that. Like even in my work, I'm starting to try to apply that logic as much as I can, because again, not everything is just, it's easier to draw a straight line. It's not easy to draw a curve. Like, you know, you have to like really work at the curve aspect of it. So I'm even starting to come in here with something like this and say like, you know what, this part right here needs to be up. This part needs to be down. Like these, I need to see these changes a little bit more. Even turn perspective off for a second, so you can see that I'm getting a little bit of work here. So these are just stuff that I've started studying recently and applying it to my art, and I feel like it's really just been super helpful. Yep. Yeah, it's super wild. Okay, cool. It is noon. It is noon, and this is where we got to this point so far. I'm pretty happy with just what the sketch looks like. Needs a lot of refinement, but definitely in a couple hours and talking, I would have gotten done with this probably a little bit faster if I wasn't talking, but I love talking, love hanging out with you guys. So it's one of those things that, like, hopefully you guys learned something from it and kind of like a peek into my thought process. Again, so super fun, just chilling, and definitely with composition. Let's fill the frame. Let's just take a look at them. So thank you guys so much for hanging out. I always super love it. Don't forget, again, the ZBrush Summit is here. It's alive and it's well, and it is in person, as well as the ZBrush Sculpt Off is online. So if you're going to be participating, dude, definitely like come in, check it out. Workshops are a thing. If you're here in person, you're going to want to attend at least all of these workshops, because we have so many awesome artists. We have, you know, Pablo Munoz, we have Patrick 4D, we have Henry Cervanka, we have Joseph Drust is here. He's coming in. So if you missed him, he's coming back to do a workshop. So you want to, come on, book this. Oh, look, people are already booking. Oh, sweet. There's 14 seats left. Sweet. All right, good. So if you're going to be here in person, you have until, what is it? Did they say when? Well, the summit starts on the 28th through the 1st of October. So September 28th through the 1st of October. And so first come, first serve on these bookings. So book it, show up, say hi, all that good stuff. You're not going to want to miss these classes. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that as well. And then, of course, too, just real quick, fast and in a hurry, I mentioned earlier, if you're a student, then getting the entire Maxon 1 suite for less than a cheeseburger is pretty optimal these days. So if you're a student or a teacher that works at accredited school, definitely check that out. You're going to want to do that. And then, of course, too, we have a bunch of events that happen as well. So I'm super excited for a lot of these. Again, we have an Ask Me Anything coming up. Let's see if it actually made the events page because we have a Ask Me Anything showing up. Yep, here it is. ZBrush Sculpt Off Ask Me Anything Session 1 coming this Friday. So you want tips, tricks, ideas, rules, confirmations, going over what it is that the Sculpt Off is going to entail. You're not going to want to miss this because firsthand for myself, Paul Gabriel, Louis Tucci, we're going to come in and talk about this. And just kind of like the tips I gave you today, those are things you're going to be expecting the day of. So if you have any questions, hold them till Friday and we'll answer them live. And then that way, and we're going to do more of these sessions. This is session 1. We're going to do a few more. So definitely check out for that. All right, that being said, I've ranted long enough. Thank you all for hanging out with me. We started sculpting Carnage. We're going to clean them up, have some fun. And until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye, everybody. Peace.